Today I am very honored to be with you and talk to you a bit about some winning supply chain strategies. And I realize we only have a few moments together this morning, so we'll kind of fly at a very macro level, but we'll tell you a bit about us, talk a bit about leadership, my favorite subject and where I spend most of my time, and a bit about transformation, some strategies perhaps to help you with your talent piece, and then we'll have some parting thoughts. And I always put this up as kind of my disclaimer, public service announcement, if you will. I realize that all of you guys and ladies here are professionals in your own right, and I realize that a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today, you've probably said and lived and see, yep, I get it, been there, done that. It's not going to be necessarily landmark. It's not going to be necessarily life-changing, but hopefully it is my goal, and it is my goal when I listen to many of you speak and try to learn from you is that you'll leave today and hopefully you'll be able to take at least one new idea back to your business that will help you be a little bit better tomorrow than you were yesterday. That's always my goal. That's always my personal goal when I listen to you guys and ladies speak. With that being said, a bit about La-Z-Boy. We were founded in 1927. By the way, this is our 90th anniversary, and we're pretty proud of that. Been around a long time. And it's, I think it's somewhat difficult for companies and businesses to remain relevant for a long period of time, and we're proud we've been able to accomplish that. We are the largest reclining chair manufacturer in the world, second largest source of residential furniture in the United States, and we have about almost 9,000 employees in our company. And this is absolutely one of my favorite slides, and many times when I have the chance and the privilege to speak, I always put it in many times, and that is manufacturing and supply chains are dynamic. And I love this quote by Mr. David Giaquillo, and if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. And I really believe that. I believe it absolutely is necessary for us all to embrace change. Change is tough, but I think not changing is tougher. And I really think in all we do, we have to kind of embrace that. So, with that being said, this morning we'll talk really at a macro level about three fundamental tenets, if you will, of supply chains or really strategies for any business. But we'll spend a bit of time on leadership, talk a bit about transformation, and then kind of finish up a little with talent and a few parting thoughts. So leadership, I really believe it still is all about leadership. I truly believe that is the secret sauce of what we do. And I think, and I say that because think about this fundamentally, and I've heard other speakers say this, and I tend to agree with it. We all have the capability to buy the same technology, the same systems, develop the same processes, right? Build the same kind of factories. And really the only difference between winning and losing, in my opinion, is the people within those businesses. That really is the secret sauce, is your people, and it starts with leadership. And so one of the things, again, that seems to work for us, and it not necessarily is something that, again, you have to choose if it's something that, an approach you'd like to take and embrace. But what works for us is we really believe that it's not about us as leaders. We try very hard to be servants. We think it's bigger than us. And so what I mean by that is, at La-Z-Boy, I'm very proud to work for La-Z-Boy. I think we make a fantastic product, and I think making furniture is noble work. But to me, how I get excited, what motivates me, is if I kind of look at it like, if we do our jobs well as leaders, we provide the ability for a lot of people throughout the country to live in a part of the country they want to live, or the world, to provide for their families, to make a good living. And to me, that's more important than just building a great product. So it's bigger than just what we do. It's really, it's about our people. And so I think it's a philosophy that works well for us. So I put up here, when you build a compelling leadership vision, think about this. Is it bigger than ourselves? Are we able to provide maybe employment for the local community, which is what excites me? Maybe it's creating a really compelling value proposition for your stakeholders, meaning that you really enjoy creating something tangible and fantastic for others. Maybe it's building an environment of continuous improvement. You're a process guy or a process lady, and you really enjoy enhancing processes. Or maybe it's you're a lifelong learner, and you like building a dynamic learning environment or creating a nimble, agile, entrepreneurial type organization. But the bottom line is we believe leadership starts with serving, and it's more than just about us, and we try really hard to work on our culture and proliferate that through the business. And when I say that is I ask you, how's your culture? Does it align with what you're trying to accomplish? And I'm going to show you a really quick video. I'm going to introduce you to a guy named Eric Arnold. Now, we're proud of Eric, make no mistake about it. But I'd like for you to listen to what Eric's saying and the people around Eric, and I'd like for you to think about the culture of what he's talking about. How does it feel? And hopefully you'll get an idea of what I'm trying to say here about building a cultural type environment. Eric works in our Siloam Springs, Arkansas plant, and he does a fantastic job. But I guess really the message I hope resonated a bit is the culture that we work really hard at creating. And that aligns very much with our leadership style. So again, as we're talking about leadership, I would encourage you to consider both your culture of your company, what are you trying to accomplish, as well as does it fit with your leadership style as a team. So I'm not advocating you do this, but it certainly worked for me. So I've shown this slide a couple of times when I've spoken before, and it really fits our culture. And so I was talking to a professor once, and he asked me what I did. And at the time, I was a general manager, vice president of a manufacturing site. And he said, so Darrell, it sounds to me like you're running for town mayor when you're out there working in your plant. I said, gosh, that's a great idea. I said, I think you're right. And so I began to think about that. And so think about if you use this framework, if you were running for election as town mayor, what attributes, characteristics might those leaders possess? Well, I think they have to communicate really well, right? And so that was one of the things we felt like was important. Have to be visible among the people. Can't just sit in your office. You have to walk around, talk to people, find out what's going on, be visible, be a part of the team. Exercise strong self-control, because we've all had those days, right? We've all had those days when we just things haven't gone well, and we've been a bit frustrated. But yet, nonetheless, as leaders, we do have to exercise strong self-control. Be of strong moral and ethical character. I won't go into that. That's self-evident. That's obvious. That's a must, an absolute, as we say. It's not negotiable. But we must be responsible and accountable to our constituent base. And the same as in our businesses and what we do. We're responsible if we're servant leaders to our people. Be a visionary. Be a strategic thinker. Have the ability to maybe see around the corner, right? And possess a strong desire to serve. And we've talked a bit about that, being a servant leader, right? Have a consistent message, because consistency, I believe, builds trust. And to be a great, strong leader or develop the culture, at least we try to develop, trust is incredibly important. And remember, like it or not, we kind of sort of do live in a glass house. And what I mean by that is all of our actions represent the business in which we're employed. If we're at a office or business function, certainly we represent the company. But what if we're at a local high school football game on Friday night? The way we conduct ourselves, the way we act in public still is a representation of the business that we're employed by. So it's the life we've chosen, but like it or not, we kind of do live in a glass house. So again, just a few ideas, and hopefully one of those might resonate with you as you begin to build your culture, or to strengthen your culture, I should say. Hopefully that's an idea or two there that will help. So what about if your business maybe is a crucible, at a crucible point, or you're in a transformational state? So what about that? So what about transformation? If you're considering one, here's a framework that we tend to use a little bit, and in all that we do from a transformation perspective, whether it be transforming a department floor in a manufacturing site or distribution center, or looking at a process across the other segments of the business, is we always do it, we're engineers, right? We grew up in the engineering world. We always like to do an as-is state. How are we doing? So we always tend to look at how we're doing relative to our competition. We try really hard because we believe we're as one of the best furniture companies, if not the best furniture company in the world. We like to think that. And so we've gone out and tried to transform our business in some areas. And we've done so by not just looking inside the furniture space, but gone outside the furniture space and say, who's best in class at how we would, or things we'd like to aspire to be better at doing. And so we, again, look at ourselves versus our competition. Specifically in the business world, is the marketplace in which we're playing, is it growing or shrinking? Is the growth rate relative to the current conditions and future conditions growing or projected to grow or shrink? How profitable do we expect to be in certain areas of the business, and are we doing so, and how are we doing relative to competitors? We also do a lot of benchmarking. Again, if we want to improve in a specific area, regardless of what area that is, we don't just look within our industry. We go out and look outside and say who's best in class in this specific area, and how can we learn from them? How can we get better? Because we always really believe trying to get better every day. And we do comparisons relative to our peer group in certain areas, relative to margins as well, relative to growth. And then we decide if we want to make a case for change. Is the change proposition that we're looking at doing, is it a cost proposition? Is it a benefit to the business? Is it going to create new markets or drive new sales in a certain segment? Those are the things that we look at. So again, just a general framework, nothing landmark here, but we look at this type of framework when we're considering a transformational change. And once we made that decision then to change a segment of the business, these are kind of the tenets, if you will, that support our change proposition. One is people. As I've said before, I really believe people are the key. I think that is the only true differentiator between what we do is our people. I believe that. Do we have a robust talent management program in place to support this change? And we'll talk about that in a minute. What are we measuring? Are we measuring what we want to change as far as behavior? I believe, just like Jack Welch said very well, what gets measured gets better. And so we try very hard to align measurement characteristics to the behavior change we'd like to see. Can we use this as a point of leverage, meaning can we leverage other skill sets, other benefits that we currently exist, other capabilities within the business to other segments of the business? We try very hard to leverage our scale. Obviously, we talked about best practices. Why reinvent the wheel? If you're doing something really well, let's take that, plug and play elsewhere as best we can. And this was a biggie, and it's obviously quite obvious. Are we aligning ourselves to the goals? In other words, I don't know who said it, but whomever said it very well. You can't hit a target you can't see. And so we try very hard to make sure that those goals are clearly stated, clearly articulated, and everyone in the business knows what the objective is, and then hence build a strategy to accomplish that. Again, nothing landmark here, but just a few ideas when you build a framework or you assess whether or not you should be transforming certain parts or segments of your business, and you align toward that. Lastly, my favorite subject is talent, and Hugh kind of introduced me early on, and I have the honor and the privilege to work with some incredibly smart people within the global supply chain of La-Z-Boy. And we have a lot of responsibility within that supply chain across the world. But believe it or not, I actually spend most of my time here on the people side of it and not on the process side or the execution side. Because again, I tend to believe this is the true differentiator. And we work really hard at talent management. And so you can go out and look at data, look at studies at various places, and they're all going to be maybe a little different. The data is going to be slightly different, but it typically is fairly consistent. And that is that it pays to manage talent. I mean, this particular study said EBITDA goes from 16.2 to 14.1. Good thing, right? Net profit margins of companies that manage talent deliberately have a talent management process increases 22%. In return on assets, 49%. And lastly, return on equity, 27%. The data may be a bit dated, but generally it's pretty directional. It pays to manage your talent. Now, obviously, there's always new and innovative ways to manage talent or to grow talent organically, to recruit talent externally, but there's also some fundamental basic ways that I tend to believe still work pretty well. And that is, we tend to do on the supply chain side twice-a-year annual reviews with our talent leadership. And that is almost all the talent leadership within our business. Twice a year, we talk about things. We look at, we use a 9-box, for example, rating. We look at succession planning. We look at development of people. That's one, our biannual reviews. We have strong conversations, both good and sometimes not as good, about what are your aspirational goals, how can we support those goals, right? We do employee profiles, career development plans. We spend a lot of time on that because we do believe for businesses to succeed, it has to be a win-win proposition. The way it becomes, I think, a win-win proposition is if we're all engaged and aligned. So if I know what you want, if I know what your career goals are, I can help you achieve those career goals. Again, it's all about having those good conversations and can't hit a target you can't see, so we're trying to make sure we're incredibly aligned. And again, applied talent management. Are we hiring the appropriate talent? Are we grooming our talent organically? I tend to think a healthy balance of both is quite good. I tend to think a high tide does raise all boats, so we try really hard to engage our smart people who've been with our company a long time and infuse those people with smart people from the outside. We get better collectively. We truly believe that. So again, from a talent management strategy, fundamentals still work. Even though there's in vogue processes, fundamentals still typically work. So I would ask you to ask yourself a few questions. Here are some of the questions we ask ourselves as we try to refresh our talent management strategy a couple times a year, and that is, why is it important to us? Well, we have company strategies, we have functional strategies, and we make sure that talent is aligned to those strategies. And so what I mean by that, for example, many years ago, we wanted to increase the robustness of our sales and operations planning. And we looked around inside the room and inside the team, and we said, we have some really smart people, and we're proud of our people, but maybe there's some new, more contemporary thinking out there from a sales and operations planning group. So we brought new people in from the outside because that was a strategic initiative of ours long term. So hence, we tried very hard to take and align our strategy with that. Again, I would encourage you to consider what your talent management strategy is long-term and build an appropriate framework around that. We talked about not forgetting the basics of talent management, and then brand your talent management. People that work with us within our global supply chain truly understand when they come to us and have been with us a short period of time, they know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about talent, and we've branded that as such. So just a few strategies there. And with that said, I'll kind of leave you with a couple of parting thoughts before I leave. We'll call it gift with purchase. Not necessarily anything relative to what we talked about, but just a few things. I think it was Yogi Berra who said, forgive me if I'm wrong, who said, I'm full of great advice and all my good advice comes from bad experiences. Well, I'm the poster child for that. So with that being said, these are things I've learned, in some cases the hard way, but just wanted to share these with you. Communication means a lot. Not true. Communication means everything. I truly believe fundamentally you will be as successful directly to how well you communicate. I really believe your success proposition as a leader and as a company is incredibly relative to how well you're able to communicate. We try really hard to ask compelling, tough questions of our team. Listen to what they say, and then once they give us feedback, act. We challenge our team to find a way to work hard. We do, but we try to play hard too. I think celebrating is an incredible, important part of business or any competitive sport, and I like to call this sport we're in business is a competitive sport. It's really important to celebrate when you've achieved success because you clearly will. Surround yourself with high performers. I work really hard at this. I hire people a lot smarter than me. And by the way, for me, that's not hard to do. But I really work hard at surrounding myself with high performers. We expect excellence, and I've learned through a lot of years that typically people will deliver generally what you expect and many times often exceed your expectations. And as I said a few minutes ago, clearly celebrate milestones because you will surely achieve those. So ladies and gentlemen, it has really been my pleasure to be with you today, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you.